You really can't be successful in business without taking risks. It's really that simple. Adena Friedman. You have the power to be the boss of your own life. I'm your host, Monica Allen. I'm a wife, mom, entrepreneur, best-selling author, lifelong learner, and your biz bestie. I have a love and passion for all things small business. Growing my own company from $700 to over 7 figures annually, my goal is to bring you inspiration, business-focused topics and tips, encouragement, and a community that helps you launch, grow, and scale your business, whether you are a dreamer, a side hustler, or a seasoned entrepreneur. You are listening to the Become Your Own Boss podcast. I assume you listen to this podcast because you either run a business or you want to run a business. Whatever the case may be, take a moment to go to monicaallen.com. There's 2 A's in the middle of that web address. I want you to go there and grab my free ebook called 11 Secrets of Small Business Success. In this book, I share with you 11 tips that I think has helped our business grow to over 7 figures per year and has allowed us to remain in business for over 20 years. Again, just visit monicaallen.com or click the link in the show notes to grab your copy of the free ebook. Being introduced to graphic design at the age of 14, my guest today has embraced her passion. Attending Savannah College of Art and Design, she entered her entrepreneurial path shortly after graduating with a bachelor's of fine art in graphic design. She serves as the founder and chief creative officer of Creative Juice, a boutique marketing agency providing graphic design and web design services. Now managing a team of 6, Octavia Warren is well on her way to growing an amazing agency. I'm so excited for the conversation that Octavia and I shared around pricing strategies for your services and the importance of having the right clients and the right team. And we talked about so much more. I can't wait to share it all with you, so let's take a listen. Well, hi, Octavia. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to chat with you today as well.
I am too. First, before we dive in and learn more about your business, tell me a little bit about what were you doing before you decided to take the leap into entrepreneurship?
Sure. So I took the leap of entrepreneurship around the age of 23 full time, but I would say I kind of started getting my feet wet when I was in college. Around my junior year, I went to SCAD, studied graphic design, and I started kind of building my network and my clientele, freelancing. That pretty much, never stopped even throughout graduation. After I graduated college, everyone was pretty much like, oh, you need to get a full-time job. I took a full-time role at a large corporation where I did graphic design as well. And that was cool, but I didn't really feel like corporate America was for me. So I left that role and then went to work at a startup, and I was the only creative within that organization, and I did all of their branding and marketing. I still continued to freelance on the side. In fact, even when I got that job, I told the CEO of the company that, this is cool, but one day I want to own my own agency. I've kind of just set the tone. And he was like, oh, that's great. I fully support you. I see a lot of myself in you as well. And, as long as you get your work done here at work, I don't care what you do outside of work. He really gave me that flexibility. I joined a few organizations, one being the National Association of Professional Women. And I would go to different networking and meetup events they had, during my lunch break, or I would go meet clients. And then after being there for a year, they wanted to kind of transition my role into something that I wasn't necessarily interested in. So I kind of had to make a decision. And from there, I kind of just sat with it, told my clients, hey, I'm thinking about doing this full time. What do y'all think? And then I also reached out to my network, and they were more so reaching out to my network to say, how do you know when it's time for you to quit your full-time job and do your freelance business full-time? And they just kept saying, you'll know. And I'm like, but how do you know? And they're like, you'll just know. Again, after they wanted to transition the role, that's kind of when I knew it was time to really take that leap of faith and launch Creative Juice. That's kind of how it happened. That was, again, maybe 2 or 3 years. I worked a job and then kind of just went off and did my own thing in terms of being my own boss.
Love that. Very good. How has it been so far? I mean, you started in 2013. How's it been so far?
It's been great. It's been a lot of ups and downs, particularly in my industry. We have like the feast or famine seasons that happens. I would say, there's been a few challenges in terms of like understanding how, number one, I started a business, right? And I don't think I necessarily knew what I was getting myself into. It sounds fun, right? But then when you're in there, you're like, oh, I have a real business with real clients and real employees. It was definitely a lot of building the plane as I'm flying it and just really learning, what does it mean to be a CEO? What does it mean to be a leader? I remember at one point when I had like a team of 5, I just remember calling my friends and I was just like, now I'm a leader. Like, I just didn't really think about, again, what I was getting myself into and like, okay, what does leading a team in a company, right? Hiring people who you pretty much tell them your vision, right? And they believe in you. So it's a lot of pressure in terms of just being able to sustain a business. But on the flip side, it's been very rewarding. I love being my own boss. I love the fact that I can use my strategic thinking and make decisions that I feel like are best for my business and for myself. Of course, I love the financial freedom that comes along with that. But yeah, it's been interesting. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I don't think I would ever go back to having a job. I think at this point, 11 years in, I've also like previously started other businesses that have been successful. I think entrepreneurship is definitely the career path for me, like permanently. And yeah, the more I learn and grow, the more I'm, started to really fall in love with the journey, not the actual like results of like where I want to be. And that is sometimes challenging, kind of falling in love with the journey.
Yeah. The journey can be painful is what I found. But you've made some really great points in answering both of those questions for me, in that you talked about your network and you talked about joining organizations. And that's one of the things that I like to say to new entrepreneurs or people who are new to the entrepreneurial space or who wants to get into entrepreneurship, is to find people like yourself, find people who are entrepreneurs, find people who can understand what you're going through and what you're dealing with. How have you gone about doing that even as you stepped into entrepreneurship full time?
From building my support network?
Yeah, your support network, or joining other organizations, just making sure that, I don't know about you, but I love my besties, right? I love my friends, but most of them aren't entrepreneurs. I don't always talk to them about business per se. Kind of having that support system or someone you can talk to and they understand, payroll, dealing with that up and down.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I would say how I originally built up my network of other entrepreneurs in my tribe, if you were to say, is I joined a lot of like educational programs, whether it's through like the SBA, the SBDC. I became a minority business certified entity, and then they had their own programming where they offer you grants to do continuing education. So I took like, marketing and leadership classes at Tuck School of Business. I've done programs sponsored by Google. That really allowed me to build up my network of other entrepreneurs and just find like-minded people. I'm also a member of EO, Entrepreneurs Org as well, which is how I met you, of course. But I think that having that tribe is really important because, yes, entrepreneurship can be quite lonely at times. And sometimes you tend to feel like your problems are your problems. Like I thought, oh, I can't hire the right team. Like this is an Octavia issue. And then you talk to other entrepreneurs who have $10 million businesses with 150 employees. And they're like, no, girl, that never goes away. It's just some like universal challenges that we all face. And I think what's really special about entrepreneurs is when you find the right people, we're always willing to help and exchange ideas because we all equally understand the challenge, right? The struggle of running a successful business. Finding those people who are willing to help you, willing to do experience shares so you can learn off of their knowledge is really, really important, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. Given you mentioned the word challenges, which we know there are many, But what would you say was one of your biggest challenges within like the first 2 to 3 years of your business?
I would probably say finding the right team members. I think that when I first started, I didn't necessarily know that my business was going to take off so fast. So a lot of foundational things that are really important in terms of determining the culture of the organization, I wasn't aware back then how important that was. And I quickly learned that if you don't create the culture, your employees will create it for you. And that's not always, if you don't have the right people in, you can find yourself in a culture or running an organization with a culture is not in alignment with what you want it to be. I would say that now, through trial and error, and I'm still, figuring that out 100%. You can't ever guarantee that you are always going to find the right people, but I spend a lot more time hiring slowly. I used to hire fast, fire fast, and now they say you're supposed to hire slow, fire fast, essentially. But I think I spend a lot more time doing like due diligence up front in terms of like the interview process and how I vet people and how I'm onboarding them to make sure they're clear around, again, just the values, the why, and the culture of my organization. And I've seen drastic improvements with, employee retention as well as like attracting and retaining the top talent.
Okay, I like that. Have you established core values within your business?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Now I have. Back then, no. I didn't know any better. It's kind of like you don't know what you don't know. So a lot of it was just like, okay, me understanding what's important to me personally first. Also, like, what are my own personal core goals? And then how does that translate into kind of everything I do in my life, not just my business. And then even now through the interview process, I asked a candidate, like, what are your own personal core values, just to see how they align with us and what we represent.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, I can remember when we started our business. When you start, you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants anyway, because you don't know. It's so many hats you have to wear and you have no idea, even from the administrative stuff, right? Department of Labor and Department of Revenue.
Yeah.
Just had no idea. You're flying by the seat of your pants. And I can just remember when Ethan, he actually joined Accelerator first before he became a part of EO. And they started talking to us about core values. And it was just something that never entered my mind. It just wasn't anything I ever thought about. But once we established those, it made it so much easier to communicate to team members how to get the job done. Because core values outline that. So it was a huge 180 for our business. For sure. I know you're in a service-based business. First, tell us a little bit about your business, who you serve, what problem do you solve? And then I have another question around that.
Sure. So I actually currently run an agency called Creative Juice. We are a multicultural branding and marketing agency, and we employ people from all across the world who come together and work with our clients for, branding and marketing purposes. In February, we launched Chroma Creators, which is like a sub-brand underneath Creative Juice. And we pretty much launched that because over the past 11 years, we found that brands were still struggling to speak to Black audiences authentically. We saw a need in the marketplace that we wanted to fill. That's how Chroma Creators was kind of founded. And what's unique about Chroma is it is a very much forward-thinking branding and marketing agency. So we actually integrate AI into our creative process, which allows us to offer our clients more solutions at a faster pace. Chroma just, launched this year, but Creative Juice we've always been a multicultural agency, but more recently we have decided to really lean into what that means and kind of the value that it provides to our clients in terms of really bringing that global perspective to the table.
Okay. One of the things that I find most challenging with service-based businesses is deciding what to charge for your services. I'm sure you figured that out now and, you've seen the amount of time that's needed. But how did you start in the beginning with pricing your services for your clients?
That's a great question. When I started out, I was a freelancer. I think I just chose $50 an hour, just random number. But when I transitioned from a freelancer to an agency, that's when I really had to understand okay, now I have a virtual assistant, right? Back then, I didn't exactly know, hey, my $50 an hour now has to cover somebody who isn't billable. So I was like, oh, I guess my rates need to be higher, right? Because now I have another person here that isn't billable. That kind of helps me realize and understand more of the numbers and the math behind business, understanding like what are my overhead charges in terms of not just people, because we're a services-based industry, right? Like I am only as strong as my people because they provide the services. Understanding like what profit margins need to be, what are my cost of goods, which is essentially my people who perform the services, and then reaching out to, my tribe essentially, and anyone who also own the agency, and kind of understand how their pricing structure works. But it's really just kind of starting backwards and understanding, okay, number one, you could charge what the industry will pay, right? If they'll pay you $1,000 an hour, then sure, charge that. But I think just looking at other organizations and making sure that you're competitive is really important. And then also understanding like what is your hard cost, what are your cost of goods, what do you want your profit margins to be? Also, as a CEO, you want to give yourself a salary. So like how much money do you want to make? And kind of factoring all that in and developing a number that you feel is comfortable for you. I think also with the profit margins for me or for any industry, you could just Google like what are the average profit margins of this industry, and that also helps you kind of get a gauge of what your pricing should be.
Yeah. So do you feel like you're covering it all at this point? Do you feel like you've gotten like all your subscriptions covered and all the things that you and your team need covered?
I think with our hourly rate, yes. I think that if you think about an organization like, I don't know, McDonald's, they understand like their cost all the way down to like the paper bag that they put the sandwich in. Like I'm not that deep with it. Like technically the software that we're paying for, if it's, I don't know, $50 a month, then that should technically go $1 if you have 50 clients each, right? I don't get that into the weeds, but I just make sure like in terms of like the profit margins, as long as, the overhead costs are taken care of and my people are taken care of, and then that number that's left allows me to, keep a healthy cash flow within the business, as well as like some savings in a rainy day fund. Then, that's kind of helps me gauge if I'm charging the right fees. But then also like, what are your ideal customers saying? Are they telling you you're too expensive? Or is everyone, signing up? I have learned something years ago, like if you're selling a service and everyone always says yes, 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 that means that you're not priced high enough, that you should raise your rates, which I thought was interesting. So I kind of keep that in the back of my mind as well. If I get to a point where, okay, everyone can afford me, now it's time to kind of level up. Not only just charge more, but we're more experts at that point, right? And then how do we add even more value now that we've kind of got into the groove of the services that we do offer and the prices that we do charge?
That is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I know that entrepreneurship is as much about resilience as it is about innovation. Can you share a moment when you just felt like giving up, and what was it that ultimately kept you going?
Yeah, I think that there have been a few moments where I wanted to give up because I'm like, what the heck? I would say back in 2018, I did not have the right team and I did not have the right clients. And I felt like everyone was just taking from me. Like nobody cared about Octavia. It was like my employees, as long as they got paid, my clients, as long as they got what they wanted, like nobody really cared about me. And I think back then the cash flow was a little bit more tighter. I had to take out a line of credit, which is standard for most businesses. But when you take out a line of credit, you personally guarantee it. So I'm taking out this line of credit to make sure that I can cover and pay for my employees. But then I just feel like my employees don't really know that I'm making this personal sacrifice to pay them. Not that they should know, but, it's like they don't understand like what happens behind the scenes. So I think at that time, that was the first time I had to take out a loan. And I was just like, very scared of the idea as using like debt to help my business grow. So it was just very scary for me. I just felt very isolated, and I just felt like, why am I doing this when no one cares about me? But I think, again, just like reaching out to my network and my support system and understanding, again, that entrepreneurship can be isolating, right? But again, if you find the right team, they should be helping you grow. They should be bringing ideas to the table. So I think that was a learning lesson for me. People take jobs for all different reasons. Sometimes it's just because they need a paycheck, right?
Right.
And, that doesn't work for, my organization. So just making sure that I have the right people and then also the right clients, knowing how to identify red flags upfront is really important. I think back then I looked at the money and the dollar signs and I ignored the red flags because I'm like, oh, we're getting paid or this is, whatever. So I think that was a really huge eye opener for me because also you have to have the right team. You have to have the right clients. If you have the right team and the wrong clients, it stresses your team out and then they don't want to work at your organization anymore. If you have the right clients but not the right team, then people who are working for you are not the accurate reflection of your brand and actually tarnishes your brand. It's like making sure all of those things are in place is really important. And that just takes time identifying who you are as a brand and then understanding, again, like what's your unique value that you provide, who would pay for that, right? Who finds that valuable as well? Or like what pain points are you solving for someone is really, really important. And I think just making sure that they value you. When you think about branding and marketing, is very commoditized. I could go on Fiverr and find somebody to make me a logo for $20. Why should I pay Creative Juice $5,000, right? Whatever. Just making sure that you understand the value that you bring and that those clients understand that value as well is really important.
Yeah, very much so. It's funny, in you talking about the loan to take care of employees, we did the same thing early on. Yeah, that was tough. And in some cases, we're still paying for it. It's like once you hit that spiral, but we definitely learn from that. And it's not to say, of course, businesses, sometimes we need loans, right? To grow, to expand. I know for us, we buy a lot of equipment that's not cheap. Mm-hmm. We have to typically get a loan for that. But I'm learning over time that we actually just need to have a reserve to save to do that. But it's been a long process for us to learn, like, this is what we need to do versus, okay, we need this tomorrow because this one broke down. It won't work anymore. Right. It can be definitely tough. How would you say, as you've been building your business, how do you feel like it's transformed you personally?
I would say it's definitely matured me. I think starting a business at 23, not knowing what I'm getting myself into, has really just honestly forced me to be more business-minded, be more strategic in problem solving or critical thinking skills in how I approach challenges has been really important. It's definitely increased my resilience as well as my mindset. I think that, before, if something did not go the way that I envisioned in my head, I would just be like so upset and like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. This client isn't happy. But then it's like you realize as an entrepreneur, in my opinion, your job is literally to problem solve. Every day you problem solve it, right? Until you can develop these processes and standards in place to where as problems arise, you can empower your team to, resolve those issues. But I think it all comes down to you as the owner. Like, are you letting things kind of derail you or using it as learning opportunities? And I think that's something that I had to learn. Entrepreneurship has a lot of ups and downs. And if you don't keep yourself grounded, you're just going to be on that roller coaster and it's not fun, right? So how do you ground yourself and give yourself grace? You're not always going to know what you're doing. You make decisions that you think are best, but sometimes you learn, okay, I shouldn't have done that. What could I have done differently? So I think just continuing to grow and learn and have an open mindset, those are all the ways that I feel like I've done like a lot of personal development. And then also, I talked about running an agency and not realizing that when I hire a team, I'm instantly now their leader. What that means, right? As the years have come, I've matured into really understanding what it means to be a leader, what it means to develop a team and get them in alignment with one goal and get, understanding what motivates them and things of that sort. It's been a lot that I've learned in my little toolkit. Again, grateful for it. But, everything hasn't been, of course, all peachy keen. Some of the lessons were very hard lessons that I had to learn. But, again, they're just part of my journey.
Yeah. And they never stop, it seems.
Right.
Is most of your team remote, or do you all meet in places?
We are all remote. We had an office that we closed during COVID, but we were in that space for about 5 years. And that's when most of our team was kind of local. We really kind of skyrocketed when we closed during COVID. And I felt like, okay, well, now I can hire anybody from anywhere. Now our team is in like 5 different time zones. Again, didn't know what I was getting myself into. So now I was like, okay, how do I have a team meeting with everyone, on the call when people are in other time zones? So that's been interesting. Yeah, I would say we meet digitally or virtually multiple times a week, whether it's like project updates or statuses. I also meet with the team one-on-one to just make sure like, okay, how are you doing? Is everything okay? What can I help you with? And then, of course, we use like Slack and different technologies. I recently made a new hire. However, that person is here locally in Atlanta, and we're going to meet up physically once a week, I think, to just help build that rapport and make sure that like she understands the culture. Yes, definitely for like local people. But in the future, once we get a little bit larger, like I hope to be able to fly everybody out somewhere and do like a really nice corporate retreat. Again, I have no idea what that investment is going to look like when people are in other countries, but my goal, right, is to one day be able to invest and be able to, because there's people on my team I've never met in person ever, and they've been working with me for like 3 years. So it's just so weird, right? Yeah. And you're like, oh, I thought you were taller or something like that. All right. I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, right now, unfortunately, we're mostly virtual. Well, we're all virtual, essentially.
But, I think that was the coolest thing about, COVID, is that it really opened up our world, expand our thoughts on who we could hire. We had a gentleman in another country doing some design work for us, probably since like 2016. But since him, we now have all these other people. And Ethan did a map to present to the new hires that we just hired to show like where our team members are. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we have people. And I mean, a lot of them are freelancers, but when we need them, they respond and quickly. It was just kind of neat to see how that has changed so much. And we all are pretty comfortable with the communication, over email or over, those types of programs or software, WhatsApp even.
Yeah, we use WhatsApp as well.
It's great. Okay, I'm not going to keep you much longer because I know you have work to do. Maybe last question or second to last question. If you could go back and tell your younger self something, I love to ask this question, what would it be?
If I could go back and tell my younger self something, I would probably say to give myself more grace. I'm a Virgo and we are perfectionists to the T. And I'm also an overachiever. It just creates a lot of stress that I put on myself, right? Because I'm not where I want to be because I have these really big goals. And it's like other people see you and they just want to get to where you are. And you're like, I'm not even where I want to be. So you don't feel content. So more recently, I've really been learning to practice a lot of like gratitude and understanding like even though things might not always look the way I envisioned, where I am today, I prayed about 5 years ago, right? It came true. Again, it might not look, I might not have, $2 million in the bank, whatever, but my bills are paid. I'm a homeowner. I run a successful agency. I have a great team. We love our clients, right? So it's kind of like taking a step back and just being grateful for all of the decisions I made. Again, because decisions you make yesterday affect you today, right? So just thanking my older self for those decisions I made, but just continuing to practice gratitude and give myself grace, I think would have made again, because the journey has a lot of ups and downs. I think I would have been a little bit more grounded through those ups and downs if I had practiced gratitude at a much earlier in my career. Yeah, I would say giving yourself grace and practicing gratitude.
Okay. So if you don't mind me asking, how do you go about practicing gratitude? Do you do it daily? Do you write it down? Like, I don't know.
Yes. Me personally, I try to practice it daily. And for me, gratitude is not always the big things. It could be, I'm thankful that, even if I don't know if this client is going to close, I'm just thankful that they reached out to my agency because they saw, looked on our website and felt like, okay, we could potentially partner with this firm. I think really small things is really important. And then also, like, from a gratitude perspective, when you write it and you say it to yourself, put in like the emotion, like the actual feeling of thankfulness behind it. There are things that I practice gratitude for where I'm like in tears because I'm just so thankful because this is not hard. I mean, this is not easy, right? And I think just being where I am, again, it might not look the way I wanted it to look, but it's definitely what I wanted in terms of like my careers. So making sure that emotion is behind it is really, really important. And then again, just not only being thankful for like the large stuff, but also the small stuff as well. If I talk to a client, I'm thankful that call went well, or, just whatever, any little thing you could find. Even if you go to the grocery store, I'm thankful that I found a parking spot in the front. I have to walk far, right? Just any little thing you could be thankful for, because I found that the more you thank the universe for what you have, the more it's willing to give you. From my experience, gratitude is like at the top of my routine in terms of like how I journal and just reflect on my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I know this morning in my gratitude journal, I wrote that I'm just grateful that I can walk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that I'm healthy because, one of the things that I feel like I've dealt with the entire time I've been in this business is like cash flow. And because our business is so cyclical, and especially since after COVID, it's just been really weird. The year I expected to not be great was great. The year I expected to be great wasn't great. I'm like, what is happening? But, this morning I said that I'm grateful that I'm healthy and I can walk and talk, because that means I can fight on. You know what I mean? I can keep moving and keep working towards my goals and getting all this stuff the way, I desire it to be. So yeah, just the small but big things, health is wealth, as they say. Well, tell people how they can reach you first tell people who your ideal client is, and how they can reach you if they feel that they're your ideal client.
Sure. If you are wanting to work, we'll start with Chroma because that's easier. If you're a Black brand, right, and you need branding, marketing, or web help, you are our ideal client. We work with Black brands. Or if you are a brand who needs to reach a Black audience, we can help you reach multi-generational Black audiences. So Gen Z all the way to the baby boomers, right? On the creative juice side, if you are a brand who wants a multicultural approach, or you need to speak to a multicultural audience, or you want a more forward-thinking solution for your branding and marketing, then you would be an ideal client for us. And on the creative juice side, we've worked with small businesses, government, nonprofit, and large corporations. We have a lot of experience with different types of industries and businesses of different sizes. Yeah, if you, again, really value that multicultural expertise, then we are the team for you.
Okay. And I'll make sure all of your contact info is in the show notes as well. Okay. So one last question for you. Mm-hmm. Reflecting on your journey from the early days, is there any additional advice you give to someone just starting their entrepreneurial path?
I would say if you're just starting your entrepreneurial path, I would encourage you to understand that this is a learning process. You are going to sometimes make mistakes. You are going to sometimes second guess yourself, right? But just remain confident, remain grounded. And I actually listened to this sermon from Stephen Furtick. He's one of my favorite pastors. He's based in Charlotte, and he talked about even a stumble is still a step forward. And that was really powerful for me, right? So sometimes we want to run to the finish line. You gotta crawl before you walk, before you run, right? I think we see on social media, like all these people and, oh, I'm successful and I'm in another country. like you don't see the behind the scenes or the years it took for that person to get there. Yeah, that would be my advice.
Yeah. And sometimes what you see is not always fact either. There's also that.
Yep.
And I definitely think you have to kind of not stay in your own bubble, but just really focus on what your goals and your intentions are, because social media can get you caught up if you're not careful.
Absolutely. Yep.
You have to be careful with that. Well, Octavia, thank you so much for sharing your journey, your ups and downs. I'm so proud of you and the success of your business and your website. I know I saw your new website for Chroma and it's gorgeous.
Thank you.
So just keep it up and you're amazing. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the convo.
Yes, it's been great. Octavia, thank you so much for becoming a part of the Become Your Own Boss family. I love the insights you shared. All of Octavia's contact info is in the show notes. As usual, I like to share some of my key takeaways, and these are a few of my big ones. Number 1, let your network know what you're doing. If you're starting a business or venturing into a new industry or space within your business, tell people. Let your network, family, and friends know what you're up to. I think many times we assume people just know what we're doing, either based on brief conversations we have or things that we may share on social media. But I recommend crafting an email and letting people know what you're up to and who would be your ideal client. They may need your services, or at some point they may know someone now or in the future who needs your services. Number 2, core values and culture. This was such a pivotal piece for our business. Establishing core values simply gives you a path. It gives you a pulse for your entire team to move in tandem. It puts everyone on the same page. If you want to learn more about establishing core values in your business, please go back and check out episodes 70 and 71 of the podcast. This could be the foundational piece your business is missing. I truly think that this was the case for us some years ago. We even created a video that resides on our Zeus's Closet website so customers know our core values as well. This is great because it helps hold us accountable. So culture, creating the right culture in your business, and establishing those core values that are important for your company is a great key takeaway. Number 3, you don't know what you don't know. This is the case with those of us who don't have the generations of entrepreneurs before us. Ethan and I didn't have entrepreneurs in our family to really look for guidance. And that happens in the case for many of us. A lot of times we fall into a business because we're good at something, but that does not mean we actually know how to run a business. So we have to figure out how we're going to learn that part. There are books. You have to learn how to be a leader, how to be a manager. So many hats that we have to wear as business owners. Hiring people, of course, can help you, but you also have to know how to hire the right people so you create the right team. But I will say, too, that this is actually one of the purposes of this podcast, to help listeners run and sustain a healthy and profitable business. Number 4, you are not priced high enough if everyone says yes, yes, yes. I loved this. When Octavia shared this, I'm like, ooh, this is so, so true. It may feel good that everyone wants your services, but eventually you will find yourself overwhelmed and taxed. You will need to increase your prices to scale and to support your business. If you get overrun with work, you'll need to hire people. Those people will need to help you get the work done, and that introduces an entirely new set of expenses. So you won't have a choice but to raise your prices. It may reduce the amount of work, but you'll be getting paid more for your work. Lastly, and number 5, the quote at the top of the episode reads, "You can't be successful in business without taking risks." It's really that simple. Octavia wanted a clear answer on when she should take that leap from her side hustle into her main hustle. And there is no really easy answer here, but hanging on to your part-time gig can be helpful. It can actually help reduce the risk and reduce the stress of taking that leap. And I would suggest saving at least 6 months of living expenses. If you do this and you have this money saved in a bank, it reduces your stress level of having to pay your bills, which allows you to really focus on your business and really focus on those things that Octavia talked about in finding the right clients and finding the right team. You won't feel that pressure of, oh my gosh, I've got to make money. I've got to make money. And of course, it's a business. You want to make money. You want to grow it. And there is a saying that says what you focus on will expand. So eventually you will want to take that leap, because once you can focus on your business will expand. You'll have more time for marketing, more time for networking, more time for connecting. You'll have all those things. So those are the few takeaways I wanted to leave you with. There were many more, and I'd love if you could share with me the takeaways that you got from the episode. You can share them on Instagram with me at the handle Become Your Own Boss Podcast, or you can shoot me an email at monica@monicaallen.com. Thank you for listening today. As always, I'm super grateful for you. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and share the podcast. Also, don't forget to go grab the free ebook, 11 Secrets to Small Business Success. And I just want to say, remember, now is the time. Now is the time to level up, leave a legacy, and become your own boss.